Close the door! Get the cup! Damn, I didn't do anything! Hey, I didn't turn your around! Alright.
Did you know a former police officer fatally beat up a man during a traffic stop who later died and sent photos of the injured man to his ex-girlfriend? His name is Demetrius Haley. A former Memphis police officer charged in the fatal beating of Tyree Nichols sent his ex-girlfriend a photo of the badly injured man on the night he was punched, kicked, and hit with a police baton following a traffic stop, according to trial testimony. Brittany Leak, a Memphis officer and Demetrius Haley's former girlfriend, testified during the criminal trial that she was on the phone with Haley when officers pulled Nichols over for a traffic stop. She said she heard a commotion, including verbal orders for someone to give officers his hands. The call ended, but Haley later texted the photo in a group chat comprising Haley, Leak, and her godsister. The Memphis Police Department fired the three men, along with Emmett Martin III and Desmond Mills Jr., after Nichols' death. The beating was caught on police video, which was released publicly. The officers were later indicted on the federal charges. The fatal beating, caught on police body cams and street surveillance cameras, sparked protests and calls for police reform. The officers said they pulled over Nichols for reckless driving, but Memphis's police chief said there was no evidence to substantiate that claim. Martin testified that the situation escalated quickly when Haley pulled his gun and violently yanked Nichols from his car. He never got a chance to comply, Martin said. Nichols, who was black, was pepper sprayed and hit with a stun gun during the traffic stop. The five officers, who also are black, then beat him about a block from his home as he called out for his mother. He died 3 days after the beating. He left behind an 8-year-old son. She had an affair with the courier guy? There was a young couple, we will name them Jesse and George, living in a peaceful suburban neighborhood. They were the kind of pair everyone admired, always laughing, always holding hands. One sunny morning, they decided to try a new restaurant nearby. The drive was filled with laughter, music, and stolen glances. They seemed inseparable. After a lovely meal, they returned home in high spirits. Jesse leaned over and said playfully, "We've got more time before the delivery comes." But George yawned. "I just want a quick nap," he said, heading inside. Moments later, the courier van pulled up. The delivery man handed Jesse a clipboard to sign. Their eyes met, an awkward silence, a fleeting spark of curiosity. Jesse followed him to the truck to collect the package, but the air grew heavy with tension. She hesitated, conflicted, feeling the dangerous weight of her choices. Back in the house, George stirred awake, unaware of the emotional storm brewing outside. By the time Jessie returned, her smile had faded, replaced with guilt and confusion. The package sat unopened on the table.
What?
Did you know there was a church president who was a serial killer in Kansas?
Residents of Wichita, Kansas, lived in constant fear for decades. Before vanishing off the face of the planet, the so-called BTK killer killed at least 10 people at random between 1974 and 1991. One of them was the horrific murders of the Otero family, in which he chained, tortured, and murdered 4 members, marked the beginning of Raiders' criminal activity. He evaded capture for decades, taunting law enforcement and the media with letters that detailed his crimes, which led to the nickname BTK, standing for Bind, Torture, Kill. However, in 2005, when the case was thought to be cold, BTK personally gave detectives a floppy disk and haughtily asked if it could be tracked. The investigators lied and said, nah, it couldn't be traced. They were able to track down serial killer Dennis Radar, who also happened to be a church president, thanks to the metadata hidden in the disk. The murderer that everyone was afraid of wasn't a shadowy monster, but rather a straightforward family man who was obsessed with control and was brought down by an outmoded piece of technology. During interrogation, Radar asked why the investigator lied to him, and he replied, "Because I was trying to catch you."
From eyewitness accounts and forensic evidence and a post-blast analysis, I shielded and covered the grenade for my fellow Marine.
The grenade's heavy steel body twisted and swelled, then exploded, ripping Lance Corporal Kyle Carpenter's face of flesh and bone. It happened on November 21, 2010. The location was Afghanistan's Marja. Carpenter's family didn't know how severe his injuries were for 7 days. His parents only knew that their son was being evacuated from Afghanistan in severe condition, despite emails, voicemails, and phone conversations with Marine Corps officials. They were informed by the military that Kyle had suffered severe injuries and that it was unclear if he would survive. On November 25, Thanksgiving Day, Robin and Jim Carpenter drove 12 hours, slowed by the holiday traffic, from Gilbert, South Carolina to Walter Reed National Military Medical Center in Bethesda, Maryland, to await their son's arrival. His flight was delayed because of blood clots in his legs. Throughout Kyle's deployment, Robin had worried that harm would come to her son. For the 4 months Kyle was in Afghanistan, I felt like every time I came home, a car would be sitting in my driveway. I did what I was supposed to do, the care packages, the letters, but I still feel like I didn't have enough faith. My gut told me that he would come home wounded, or worse. Kyle Carpenter had been wounded when a hand grenade landed beside him and a fellow Marine in their lookout post. Without hesitation, Kyle lunged toward the explosive to shield his friend from the blast. He was wearing body armor, which offered some protection for his torso, but the exploding grenade left entry and exit wounds in his skull, shredded his face, severed major arteries, splintered his right arm, collapsed a lung, and left him hemorrhaging beneath a plume of gray smoke. For his action in Marja, Carpenter would be awarded the Medal of Honor.